the sheep. Jesus said, he showed, he fulfilled that he is the consummate good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. So, I would ask if you find me any religious founder, any religious priest, rabbi, minister, any leader or guru or expert in the field, and one of the first things you hear them say is, I'm like a shepherd. Okay, I'm like a good shepherd. No one says this. So what we get to sense is the character of Jesus Christ here. And his church can never, ever do any better than Jesus Christ himself. Two major points for this morning as we start. First, nobody better than Jesus. There is no better shepherd than Jesus. How so? Second, no better than. And I'll fill in the blank today. First, no better shepherd than Jesus. First, it's because Jesus knows and calls us by name. I'm sorry that I may forget your name by the fifth or sixth try. It's great we have name tags today so we can remember one another's names as our church has grown. This is never a problem or an issue for Jesus. Nobody is anonymous. Nobody is truly alone. He knows and calls us by name. Look at verses 3 and 4, which we did not read. To him the gatekeeper opens, the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. They know his voice. When you become a Christian, you become a son or daughter of God, but the other description that the Bible would give you, you become one of his sheep. Jesus calls your name. He has your name written in the book of life with his own blood, which can never be erased. You belong to him. You're loved by him. You're forgiven by him. He can never fall asleep on you or forget about you or forsake you. He knows and calls you by name. You're not a stat. You're not insignificant. You're not just wandering around and lost. Jesus, nobody better than him, who knows every one of his own. You know, the session, we had a little brief getaway down to Oceanside, and we stayed at the hotel. More than a coincidence, right? Right on the hotel lobby, there's a big question that was posted there. Are you a sheep or are you a wolf? That was our session getaway. And of course, we should ask that from time to time. Am I really sheep? Am I pretending to smell and sound like sheep? Am I really one of his own? Or am I a wolf, an intruder, an imposter, a pretender? Someone who has my own selfish agenda? Well, I know someone who does know. He perfectly discerns. And in the final days, he will divide and separate the sheep from the goats, the sheep from the wolves. Jesus knows us by name. Jesus goes on to say in verses 14 and 15, which we just read, to the degree that God the Father knows Jesus, his own Son. Jesus says, to that degree I know my sheep. Nobody better than Jesus. Second, because comprehensive and constant care. Total and continual care. Much like parenting, I always joke to newborn parents, I say, it's easy, huh? Easier than you ever thought. They all kind of sarcastically laugh or maybe may get upset. But this is an apt job description for spiritual leaders. It's really not that different. For pastors, elders, deacons, small group leaders, who is our main engine of this kind of care so far. And Jesus says this about himself. It's more than a job. It's more than a job description or a title. He is the owner. He's the chief shepherd. And he's all consumed by it. If you ever have time, you read Ezekiel chapter 34, and you talk about the prophecy of every frail, fragile, failing human shepherd to come. Every single one is. But the greatest and perfect one to come, the opposite of Ezekiel 34, is someone who constantly and comprehensively cares. Nobody better than Jesus, because he knows and calls you by name. Comprehensive and constant care. Third, self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice. If you've been alive at all in this last week, you do know about Kobe Bryant. I think it's about 24/7 coverage. I will not forget the first moment I found out. It was at the congregational meeting at Fullerton. It was shocking. And I would just say this as a pastor. It's been an outpouring. I'm surprised at the outpouring. Some of it I think might be overkill. And there's a range of people who idolize celebrities in Kobe. And then there's also the other range of this is common, normal, human empathy and grief. And you also do know we ought to be sensitive and aware as a Church of Jesus Christ. Some people are triggered that Kobe Bryant is being honored as such, given that he had potentially a criminal record with sexual assault. But in any case, maybe this is our generation's John F. Kennedy's death. Maybe this is our generation with social media outpouring. We're so obsessive. This kind of 24/7 around the clock. I don't think it's been that helpful for me personally, to tell you the truth. I've gone through different stages of grief. Mild, never too extreme, but shock, irritability, fatigue, some tears. That's all the stages. But when you do see someone that you consider to be heroic, rich, powerful, in the most unnatural, abrupt way die, it is traumatic. And all of a sudden, much of LA and around the world is coming face to face with there's nobody immune to death. Not many people get to decide how you go. Certainly, nobody decides how you're born, but very few get to decide how you go. And so what kind of hope or comfort is this? Where can we find it? I do like the tribute last night. I recorded it. Usher came out and started with the hymn, Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. It really was like a religious funeral service at the Staples Center last night. And the only hope and comfort we can have for ourselves and for loved ones and for others who have yet to know Jesus Christ is I know a good shepherd who can make everything right, who can fix and make everything right. And he's the only reason I can hope, even beyond death. This is the first time the adjective good is used. Why does Jesus use it now? Well, he says it in verses 11 and 15. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Verse 15, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. The first time Jesus uses his adjective good about himself. Why? He tells us twice, because he lays down his life for the sheep. You know, he voluntarily laid it down, which makes his act of love more remarkable. No one coerced, forced him, trapped him to do so. All of his maybe 33 years of living was anticipating and dreading. You know, the knots in your stomach, the nausea you get sometimes when something so challenging is up ahead of you. Jesus lived this out every day. He breathed that every day, knowing that he would lay his life down. And when push came to shove, when it was his life or your life, when he had to make a choice between your life or his life, Jesus says, I'll lay my life down for you. That's why there's nobody better than Jesus. You will never meet or marry anyone better than Jesus, because he lays his life down, constant and comprehensive care, and he knows and calls you by name. All right, second. Because that is true, because Jesus is the chief and perfect shepherd, he has a design, he has a plan. Here's his plan. He installs no better shepherds for you than the very ones right in front of you. Jesus, knowing and calling you by name. Are you going to tell me that he's not going to be a perfect shepherd for you still, by leaving you high and dry at your local church? Because there's nobody better than Jesus, Jesus sovereignly ordains, calls, prepares, trains, sets apart publicly people in front of you to be a better shepherd to you than anyone else can. I dare say that. Here it is in November 2019 on the Gospel Coalition. An author by the name of John Beeson writes at the beginning, in our day and age, we have virtually limitless access to the best preachers and writers and speakers out there. Absolutely. You are in the golden heyday of listening and hearing from the very best. But Beeson goes on and says this, quote, "Here's what I can offer my church that great preachers can't. I'm here. I can shepherd you. I can, if you're patient with me, know your name and your story. I can pray for you. I probably thought about you or a friend of yours as I prepared this week's sermon. If you have a question about the sermon or are seeking wisdom in picking a college, dating, or marriage, parenting, I promise I'll respond to your email. I'll be there when you get married. I'll pray with you when a loved one dies and visit you at home or at hospital, anything or anytime you need me. I'm a flawed pastor. But if you commit yourself to Christ Church, I promise to commit myself to you. I promise to commit myself to you." Why is there no better shepherd than the one right in front of you? Because they're the ones physically embodied. I can pray and know your name and know your story and come visit you when you need it most. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 2 and following, the Apostle Peter says, elders, those are all pastors and ruling elders, shepherd your flock. How? Willingly, eagerly, and as examples. And then there's this little phrase that he caps it off with. Willingly, eagerly, and you have to be exemplary to a certain degree. How do you do that? Quote, among you. How can elders and pastors shepherd you well, know you well? They have to be among you, with you, for you. So there's no better shepherd than those sovereignly placed, trained, ordained by God right in front of you. And this morning, I just want to take some time to turn that around and really to tell you from my heart why CCSE, there's no better church for me in the last 12 years than this one right in front of me. You have been, really, no better church for me and my family than the one right here. Why is that? I could have written every word for the rest of the article of Beeson. I might have at that part wrote some more. But why are you the best church for me? Well, if you work with me long enough, you've gotten close to me, you start to know these glaring weaknesses about me. And you're going to figure out all kinds of limitations to me. And then you're going to see some sinfulness, maybe rampant sinfulness about me. And yet you still love, forgive, move past, and have me grow as your pastor. See, I haven't been with another church the last 12 years that has loved me like that. That's why CCSE, there's no better church for me. One reason why many pastors can't stay long in any one place is around the 5 or 6 or 7 year mark, they all say, people really start to figure you out, you start to really figure out the sheep. And it gets really painful. Sometimes it gets toxic because there's a lack of forgiveness and grace. And then pastors just come and go and leave. But I'm so thankful for CCSA. This has not been the case. You're the best church for me because you laugh hysterically at my brilliant, well-timed, well-delivered jokes. See, like right now, like all the time. And some people come up to me afterwards and say, Harold, how do you come up with stuff like that? No, nobody asked me that, but I wanted to think that. This church is best for me because you have generously provided for my family and every means for my focus to pastoral ministry and for books and counseling and conferences and retreats and growths, and for family vacations and sabbaticals, which is a privilege, not an entitlement. But you, this church, gives it. CCSC is the best church for me because the men finally won Turkey Bowl just like the women. Thank you, men. I'm proud of you now. And our church is so good at so many things, it's frightening. We have so many talented people with expertise in so many areas. I don't ever feel like I'm lacking consultation, resources, and wiser people in the room. Some of the most real and resilient and broken and beautiful people I've ever met are here at Christ Central. And before I got married, I traveled quite a lot. But I don't recall many people being better than the church that God has brought here. On Tuesday afternoon, after a staff meeting is done and the staff all decides where we're going to lunch, they all go around and say, oh, let's go to Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A. Everyone says Chick-fil-A. And then I chime in and say, no. How about we go to Chick-fil-A? And they all laugh hysterically. They laugh so hard, some of them cry. They're like, Harold, how did you come up with that? Some of you don't even get it now, but you'll catch it. I've been doing this since Virginia. This church is best for me because you've shared the most intimate, confidential secrets. You've let me into certain rooms of your life. You have fought right in front of me. You fought me. And with some of you, you've entrusted and availed yourself so I could do the same with you. There's no better church for me. There's no better church than CCSC because before the conference started, I told some folks back there and said, look at how Sunny dressed today. She wore animal print cheetah Zumba-like pants. And she walked into the main sanctuary. I told her this morning not to wear that. Do not go to church like that. And I told some people out there, do you know what they said? They defended her. What's wrong with you, Harold? It looks great. I said, there's no better church than CCSC. There's no other church Sonny and I could walk into. You listen to preaching with eager attention and hunger across the staff. Even though my youngest daughter has said, Dad, I have no idea why people can listen to you. You pray for and with me. You labor and persevere beside me. You've given your time and talents and treasures because you love Christ and you love His church, and that is so evident. And then lives are changed. Lives are changed. You know, life change has always been the dream for CCSA. And I didn't realize until this week that God was going to answer that dream better, beginning with my families. Taylor turned 17 yesterday. She came when she was 5. Taylor turned 17, got a host of old pictures, and she posted this online, quote, before I even knew what love and sacrifice meant, you all gave up so much, expecting nothing in return. Thank you for picking me up when I'm down, calling me out when I'm wrong, teaching me life lessons, and always pointing me towards Christ. Can't believe I've been blessed with 100 sets of parents and siblings. I don't know where I'd be without you all. Thank you for treating me like one of your own. So I got to ask Taylor and Elizabeth this week during our family prayer time, Taylor, when you said 100 sets of parents and siblings, how many of them are at the church? They said 98. 98 of the 100 are you. And if there is ever one blessing, one fruit, one thing I could glory and joy in, is that my girls and my wife would love Christ and His church on account of you. This is why CCSC is the best church for me. So thank you. Thank you. I want to close with practical shepherding here at CCSC. 2 things very quick. 2 things. Here's how we're going to roll it out. playing with March, maybe April. It all just depends on logistics and some of the status and seasons of life that the session is going through right now. Don't hold me to a deadline yet, but around March or April. But first is there's stage one. There's a first stage, and I just want to kind of lower the pressure of what to expect when an elder or a pastor has you in his flock group. Step one, stage one is this. Sheep just have to be known by name. Shepherds have to get to know sheep by name. So we're separating into 12 flock groups, and each of them will run around 33 to 35. And all we're aiming to do, you can spread the word. Well, what does it mean that I'm a member now and I'm going to belong to a flock group and some elder or pastor, are they going to call me, come over my work or come over my house every day? Not really. The first layer is a very informal, friendly point of contact. We literally just want to learn your name. We literally want to know, are you going to our church? We literally just want to know, is there anything we can pray for? That's really about it. And that might take about a year just to get to know your name. But our goal, which I think God has put upon our hearts, is that every member would be known and cared for and shepherded by a leader here at the church. Here's second, and we close. Please always trust and rest in a better shepherd than you. Trust and rest in a better shepherd than you. Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 talks about he got stoned, he was shipwrecked, he felt sleepless nights, he was danger wherever he traveled, he was persecuted. And then do you know what he says at the end? And I carry around a constant anxiety for the welfare of all the churches. If Paul is escalating his argument, follow me. He talked about all kinds of physical turmoil and distress, but he closes that chapter by saying this. And then I just carry on constant anxiety for the welfare of the churches. If he's escalating his argument, he's saying this is the worst one. And then he says, who is weak or who is adequate for these things? If you care enough, if you're called by Christ, and you know the way that Jesus himself shepherds you, you're going to be tempted to be just like Jesus for the church. And you really can never escape it. You can't get away from it. Like you feel like your life is totally wrapped up and caught up with the life of your flock group or the church. Please do not forget this ending gospel encouragement for you. You have to learn to trust. Now, do you know what it looks like to trust God? Trust in a better shepherd than you? It's your prayer life. To trust in a better shepherd means you can get down on your knees and you can share your burdens, your anxiety, and your pain and stress. Last night at a praise and prayer meeting, which I would now agree is perhaps better prepared and better led than in all my years of ministry that I've seen. Why is it that after praise and prayer, especially together with these people, I almost always, 90% of the time, feel clearer-headed, lighter, brighter? Because I know what's happening. When I share with an intimate friend and I vent some of my stresses and anxieties, I just feel better because my pain and burden got divided. I offloaded that burden. This is what's happening in your prayer life. How much more with God himself? When you offload anxiety and pain and stress, God takes a big portion of that. God takes that weight off of your shoulders. And I will tell you this, if you're ever going to be in the business of shepherding a ministry and you do not have a prayer life, it will crush you. It will chew you up and spit you out. And it will come out in all kinds of unhealthy ways. Trust in a better shepherd than you. That's your prayer life. Second, rest. That's a physical Sabbath. Pace yourself, rest. A physical Sabbath. So in the Washington Post on December 10, 2019, the author Sarah Pulliam Bailey wrote an article about the Reverend Howard John Wesley, 47 last year, pastor of the historic Alfred Street Baptist Church in Virginia. In the article, she said this about him. quoting him, the pastor, quote, there's not been a day in these past 11 years that I have not woken up and know that there's something I had to do for the church, that I have to be available for a call, that I journey with people through the highs and the lows of life, through the great moments of celebration in the valley of death. Not been a day that has gone by that pastor didn't feel that. And of course, in our day and age, there's newer and greater challenges with social media and smartphones, which may tempt some passages work past all human limits. Back to Pastor Howard John Wesley. One of the greatest mistakes of pastoring is to think that because you work for God, you're close to God. And the final thing I want to share, which we'll project up here, is that early on, when he started ministry, he used to work 7 days a week. And a member of the church at that time came up to him, an older lady, and she asked him this: "Why do you work every day? Why do you work every day?" He recalled, "I said, the devil doesn't take a day off." She said, "Why is the devil your role model? Jesus models that we need to rest." Why is the devil your role model and not Jesus? Trust and rest in a better shepherd than you. Let me pray for us. Let me pray for us for a second. Lord Jesus, turn our eyes to look to and cling to a better shepherd than all of us here, Jesus alone. And change us little by little to become more like him. Oh Lord, hear us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.